Please join me and rise in body and spirit as we sing our gathering hymn number 346. Come sing a song with me.
Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Salem, Oregon. I am Gloria, Holland, and I will be your speaker this morning, sharing a bit of what I know about some notable UU women in history. I'm here with Brenna Norval, who will serve as your celebrant today, and Reverend Rick is speaking at the UU Fellowship in McMinnville, and he will return next week. As I look around, I see many friends, many faces who are familiar to me, but I also see a few people I haven't met yet. If you've been a UU since the day you were born, Janet, you are welcome here. If you joined, as many of us did some months or years ago, you are welcome here. And if this is your first or second or 27th time, you are welcome here. We come into this space for many reasons, with many stories. We stay to build relationships, to heal, to learn, to be lifted up. Let kindness and joy and love be your foundation as we join in community together. Please join us after this service for some soup. We're having soup today and some refreshments in the fellowship hall. And if you're new, the fellowship hall, you go through the doors and it's just to your left. It's the big room there. There'll be soup. We would like to get to know you.
For the beauty of the earth, this spinning blue-green ball, yes. Gaia, mother of everything, we walk gently across your back to come together again in this place, to remember how we can live, to remember who we are, to create who we will be. Gaia, our home, the lap in which we live, welcome us. And in the spirit of welcoming, let us join together saying our affirmation. Love is our doctrine, compassion is our way. Here we seek to create a joyful home for free religious exploration, build a community of caring fellowship, nurture the hope, and serve the needs of our world. Flame of fire, spark of the universe that warmed our ancestral hearth, agent of life and death, symbol of truth and freedom, we strive to understand ourselves and our earthly home. Each week, we light 3 chalices. The first is for this congregation, the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Salem. We light, oops. We light the second chalice for our partner church in Szymon-Falva, Transylvania, Romania. And we light our third chalice for our children and youth in lifespan religious education and in our world at large. No, it's got oil, I checked. No. Let us sing the flame into life.
Of all ages to come on down. This is Time for All Ages, and it is my honor and pleasure to be with you today. So come on in, have a seat. Come on. Are we all awake here? Let's try this. I say good, you say morning. Good. Good. My name is John Chinberg, and I was lucky enough to travel to Szymon-Falva, Transylvania, Romania, where they speak Hungarian and where our partner church is. And over there, there is a kids' song, a children's song, that's, to me, reminded me of, you know that one that we sing that goes, it's raining, it's pouring. See? They could do the second part. That's how well they know that song. Well, this song, oh gosh, I didn't realize that was up there already, is called Cheep Cheep Choka. And I'll tell you, in my host family, there was a granddaughter staying with our host, and she did it with her grandma, and I've got it on my phone. I wish I could just show it to you guys all. It's just so cute. We're going to do that song in just a second. I just got to give you the background. There's this boy, and he's got this wagon. And he needs to take the wagon over to his godmother's house. You with me so far? He's got to pull this wagon. The trouble is, there's these chickens in the wagon. They won't get out of his wagon. This is a problem. So he always has this old crow that he talks to when he's hauling his wagon over to godmother's house. And he's saying, what am I going to do? This is my problem. I can't seem to get the chickens out. So that's the story behind Cheep Cheep Choka. And when we sing the song, I wonder if you could advance to the next slide, because the words are going to be easier to see in the next slide, I believe. We have to find a partner, and you have to put your hand out. And you put your hand out to represent that wagon. So make a partnership with somebody and put your hand out. You guys are welcome to do it too if you want. If you want to participate in a Hungarian children's song, why not? It is time for all ages after all, right? So you guys are included. Yeah. And then what's in the wagon? A chicken. Now the other person, you have to put your hand on top of their hand. And now there's some hay there. You have to put your hand back on top. No, use both hands. They put a hand, you put a hand, put your other hand, and then you now have 4 hands, and they're all stacked up. And as we sing the song, we're going to bounce it along because that's how the wagon is going down and way. Okay? All ready? Here, there we go. And for those of you that want to read along, here we go. It goes, Cheep, cheep, choka, vak, varushka, adidea sekere, namada tomota, chukakulna krashta. Oh, I didn't tell him at the last part. You have to shoo the chickens off, you have to go, hiss, like this, hiss. Okay, so we'll do it 2 times through, and don't forget to do the hesh like I forgot to tell you. Okay, let's try it one more time. Thank you, Lorianne. Cheep, cheep, choka, vak, varushka, adidea sekere, nemado tamota, chukakul nakrashta. Hesh! Hesh! One more time. Cheep, cheep, choka, vak, varushka, adidea sekere, nemado tamota, chukakul nakrashta. Hesh! Hesh! Hey, give yourselves a hand. I think you guys did a wonderful job. You just learned a Hungarian children's song, just like that. At this time, if I could ask the center aisle to make a love arch, and then we're going to send our young RE kids on to their RE. Here we go.
I wish I would have had a teacher like John Chinberg when I was going to school. Recently, I was seated in a waiting area in a local restaurant, and I couldn't help but overhear a conversation between 2 women who were seated directly across from me. One of the women was obviously in distress and very close to tears. She was telling her friend that her niece had run away from home, and she was fearful that this niece might be in danger. The friend, appearing to understand that she could not fix this situation, reached over, touched the distraught woman's arm, and remained silent. She just listened. I was struck by the quiet kindness shown in the friend's gesture, by the attentive listening, by the lack of judgment I saw in the friend's face. And I understood that I was witnessing absolute, raw compassion in that moment. Today we will be focusing on a few women who have contributed to the betterment of our lives. As we explore their contributions, let us be grateful that they had the foresight and the energy to look to the future. Let us remember those who have come before us, the social justice activists, the scientists, the poets, and the songwriters. These women are with us today, and we are grateful to benefit from their contributions. And we are so very grateful for the Unitarians and Universalists who began so many years ago to offer a new kind of religious freedom in religious thought. We come to this place in history because of those who came before us, and for that, let us hold gratitude in our hearts.
Good morning, I'm Carrie Lynn, and I'm a new member of the Lifelines Ministry. We have no written joys and concerns today, so we'll light a candle for the unspoken joys and concerns. And the Lifelines partner with Reverend Rick to offer confidential, supportive listening, compassionate caring, or a helping hand when you need it. So to get a hold of them, just call the office or email. Thank you. This is for all the friends and members of the church.
Superman,
Pete Seeger,
Rod Sterling,
Frank Lloyd Wright,
Linus Pauling,
Charles Dickens,
P.T. Barnum,
E.E. Cummings,
Ralph Waldo Emerson,
and yes, Christopher Reeve, also known as Superman.
Thank you, Brenna. These are only a few of the very famous men in American history who were either born into or became Unitarians or Universalists. You may know, however, that March is Women's History Month. So let's let the men take their bow while we explore the successes of a few women in history. When I was a child growing up on farms here in the Willamette Valley, my family adhered to the precepts of Christian Science. My grandmother earned her living as a very well-regarded Christian Science practitioner, a healer who prayed for a better understanding of God's universe, and people looked to her to heal their physical and emotional wounds. So I grew up hearing and learning about the woman who in 1879 founded the First Church of Christ's Scientists, otherwise known as Christian Science. Her name was Mary Baker Eddy, and she was an icon of truth in my childhood home. While I most certainly no longer subscribe to the tenets of Christian Science, it never occurred to me while I was growing up that there might be other women out there who contributed to the welfare and benefit of our country and even to our daily lives. Now, I think at this point it should be noted that much of the mid-1800s in this country, and I'm going to be talking a lot about the 1800s, much of it saw great chaos and change. This was a time of increased interest in science, in women's rights and suffrage, in social justice and abolition, and in philosophy and religion. This was a time when many women, and especially Unitarian and Universalist women in particular, brought changes so profound that their work changed the direction of our nation. For centuries, however, women were considered too delicate or too uneducated, too ignorant, too domestic to be allowed into many public arenas. Women of the time were not even allowed to speak in public to a mixed group of women and men. According to Jackson Spielvogel, Associate Professor Emeritus of History at Pennsylvania State University, and I quote, "Male scientists used the new science to spread the view that women were, by nature, inferior and subordinate to men and suited to play a domestic role as nurturing mothers." I should mention here that the pictures shown here are not portraits or photos. They are likenesses of portraits which have been drawn by artificial artists. Welcome to the 21st century. I don't know. But I should thank Doc Hadley for these pictures. Some of the notable women we all read nothing about in our history books, and right? And who were also drawn to Unitarian or Universalist thinking, have only recently come to my attention. Let's start with Elizabeth Blackwell. Blackwell's family moved to the United States in about 1822 when Elizabeth was an infant. Coming from an activist family, it's really no surprise that Elizabeth would seek a profession and a religion that gave her opportunities to help people beyond the teaching career that was expected of her. Although she applied to numerous medical schools in New York and New England, she was rejected by them all, being told in no uncertain terms that she was intellectually inferior to men and she would never make it. Finally, she was accepted to Geneva College in rural New York. It soon became apparent that her acceptance was meant as a joke. And during certain lessons on reproduction, she was asked to listen from the hall and denied access to labs because, it is said, she, as a woman, was too delicate to see such things. In 1849, Elizabeth Blackwell graduated #1 in her medical school class, becoming the first, becoming the first licensed woman doctor in the United States, and in the following year, her sister Emily Blackwell became the second woman doctor in the United States. Shortly after graduating from medical school, Elizabeth lost the sight in one eye. But she and Emily continued their mission to provide medical services, especially to women. Over the years, the sisters established numerous infirmaries and medical schools for women. Elizabeth was interested in many reform movements, mainly moral reform, sexual purity, hygiene, and education regarding preventative medicine, sanitation, family planning, women's rights, and medical ethics. While we now know that some of her ideas were unfounded, such as the notion that disease came from moral impurity rather than microbes, Unitarian Elizabeth Blackwell led the way for other women of her time to seek out medicine as a profession. A number of new religions came into being in the mid-1800s. Among them, the Seventh-day Adventists, the Jehovah's Witnesses, Christian Science, and the Latter-day Saints, or Mormons. The philosophical rumblings of transcendentalism got the attention of many thinkers and social activists. Among them, of course, were the Transcendentalists and Unitarians Ralph Waldo Emerson and Henry David Thoreau. While the Unitarian movement got its start in Transylvania and Poland in the 1500s, both Unitarians and Universalists were alive and well in the United States in the 1800s, alongside the previously mentioned new religions. With William Ellery Channing's influence and leadership, the Unitarian movement expanded and welcomed many men and women who believed strongly in social activism. Consider Dorothea Dix, who became a Unitarian after hearing William Ellery Channing preach. Dix would go on to investigate the dismal conditions in the Pennsylvania women's prison system. Her advocacy for the inmates and the mentally ill was founded in her belief that all people, even the most ill and criminal element, should be treated with dignity and respect. And her work led to major reforms in the care and treatment of incarcerated women. And then there was Florence Nightingale, a British Unitarian who, after seeing the horrific conditions suffered by the injured soldiers in the Crimean War, went on to change the face of the nursing profession. And among other successes, Nightingale founded the first scientifically based nursing school in London in 1860. Back in the United States, Clara Barton, who was born into a Universalist family, became intrigued by the International Red Cross, which was established by the Geneva Convention. Who knew? In 1881, Barton established the American Red Cross and served as president until 1904. Mary Livermore, who served as a nurse in the Civil War, went on to write volumes, and to become a national lecturer on the subject of civil justice and women's rights. Mary Livermore is quoted as saying, "For humanity has moved forward to an era when wrong and slavery are being displaced and reason and justice are being recognized as the rule of life." Jane Addams, creator of Hull House in Chicago, worked on legislation to create juvenile courts, limit working hours for women, and required school attendance. Addams was a founding member of the American Civil Liberties Union and the first woman in America to win the Nobel Peace Prize. Yes. Two Universalists who changed the role of women in America were Judith Sargent Murray and Olympia Brown. In the 1780s, this was like, 240 years ago or so, Judith Sargent Murray, a staunch feminist, advocated for women's rights, especially to become ministers, opening the door for women to take leadership roles in the Universalist Church. Judith Sargent Major, one of the founders of the American Universalist Church, wrote, among other things, the essay on the equality of the sexes, which is looked to even today by progressive-minded activists. In her essay, Murray states, "Our souls are by nature equal to yours. The same breath of God animates, enlivens, and invigorates us, and that we are not fallen lower than yourselves." Also an ardent suffragist, Olympia Brown became the first woman in the United States to be ordained into the ministry by the National Universalist denomination. This was in 1863. Olympia Brown opened the door for women across America to take leadership roles in many American churches. I think many of us are somewhat aware that the suffrage movement began at the Seneca Falls Convention in New York in 1848. This was before the Civil War, and ended in 1920 with the passage of the 19th Amendment. Now, the word suffrage does not mean to suffer, but rather suffrage means the right to vote. The struggle to get women the right to vote took 72 years and the dedication of thousands, maybe tens of thousands of American women. We refer to this right to vote struggle as the suffrage movement. Elizabeth Cady Stanton changed the course of American history when she delivered her Declaration of Sentiments speech at the Seneca Falls Convention, laying the foundation for the suffrage movement to follow. Now, while Stanton did not identify specifically as a Unitarian, she worked and lived closely with others whose names you may recognize. Unitarian Susan B. Anthony became the face of the early suffrage movement as she and Stanton worked tirelessly as a team to spread the message of women's rights across the land. Both Anthony and Stanton worked with our own Unitarian, Abigail Scott Duniway, who devoted over 40 years to the cause of women's rights, much of that time spent right here in the Willamette Valley. Many of the women in the suffrage movement also became noted for their work in other fields of social justice. Lucy Stone, outspoken suffragist, abolitionist, feminist, and Unitarian, became known as the first woman to keep her own name after getting married. And what a scandal that was, right? After the 72-year struggle to gain suffrage, Unitarian Carrie Chapman Catt spoke successfully before the United States Congress, that's the Senate and the House of Representatives, a body that included at the time only one woman. She pleaded with the Senate and the House to honor women with the passage of the amendment that would finally codify women's suffrage. Catt had served as president of the National American Women's Suffrage Association, which was to turn into the League of Women Voters, which Unitarian Carrie Chapman Catt founded. Yay! During the Civil War, Unitarian Julia Ward Howe, a fairly well-known poet, feminist, and anti-slavery activist, was asked to write a poem that could be sung to the tune of John Brown's Body. The words to the Battle Hymn of the Republic came to her in the middle of the night with the lyrics just swimming in her head. Her song became immediately popular with the Union troops and is sung very often to this day. Later in 1870, with the scourge of the Civil War still being felt, Julia Ward Howe wrote and delivered a proclamation for Mother's Peace Day, which read in part, "Our sons shall not be taken from us to unlearn all that we have been able to teach them of charity, mercy, and patience. We women of one country will be too tender of those of another country to allow our sons to be trained to injure theirs." In 1914, President Woodrow Wilson officially recognized Mother's Day as a national holiday. Thank you, Julia Ward Howe. And of course, we must not forget Unitarian Louisa May Alcott, who brought us Little Women. I had never heard the name Maria Mitchell until I began doing research for this presentation. Now, Maria Mitchell was a naturalist, an educator. She taught at Vassar College, and an astronomer. In 1847, she discovered a comet that became known as Miss Mitchell's Comet. And afterward, she became internationally renowned for her work in astronomy. Another American astronomer who lived in the 20th century was Unitarian Cecilia Payne. I don't know how one does this, but she discovered that stars are made mainly of hydrogen and helium, and she established that stars could be classified according to their temperatures. Yeah. Since I'm not a scientist, this information is way over my head, but I find it rather unfortunate that Cecilia Payne and Maria Mitchell are not household names. Another Unitarian whose name some of you may remember is Captain Dr. Laurel Clark, the U.S. naval officer and astronaut who perished in the 2003 Space Shuttle Challenger disaster. As a young girl coming up on a farm, I remember well watching my mother put together many meals, including desserts made from scratch and cinnamon rolls made from memory. Often my mom would throw in a pinch of salt or a bit of butter or a splash of milk. This technique and measurement was standard practice when, in most kitchens when my mom was learning how to cook from her mother. However, in the late 1800s, a Unitarian named Fanny Farmer published cookbooks that introduced American cooks to the science of cooking, including the use of standardized measurements like cups and half cups and tablespoons and teaspoons and so forth. Fanny Farmer wrote extensively about the necessity for sanitary working space, the importance of good, balanced nutrition, and tips for good housekeeping and safe canning and drying of fruits and veggies. Fanny Farmer's later cookbooks contained over 30 pages on preparing food for diabetics, and this was in the late 1800s. After gaining a reputation that some might say would equal Julia Child's, Fanny Farmer, who had not completed high school due to illness, would go on to lecture at Harvard Medical School, and she taught doctors and nurses the scientific importance of preparing nutritious, appealing meals for the sick and convalescent. It's been well over 100 years since Fanny Farmer's cookbooks were first published, and they are still available today. Social activism has been a foundation of the Unitarian faith for centuries. And Frances Ellen Watkins Harper epitomizes such concrete work. Born free in 1825, Harper was the first African American woman to be a published author in the United States. Called the mother of African American journalism, this very active Unitarian fought through her writings for abolition, prohibition, and suffrage. Another African American Unitarian, Fannie Barrier Williams, was a suffragist and one of the founders of the NAACP. The Black activist Margaret Moseley served on the board of the Civil Liberties Union of Massachusetts and was the leader not the leader, she was a leader, in the anti-McCarthyism movement of the 1950s. Many of us remember the name Reverend James Reeb, the white Unitarian minister from Boston who walked across the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama, with the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. Reverend Reeb, along with two other activist men, were leaving a restaurant after dinner when they were attacked by a group of white supremacists. Unitarian Reverend Reeb was killed, and the attackers were set free. A few days later, Viola Liuzzo, and I hope I'm pronouncing her name right, Viola Liuzzo, a white Unitarian activist and mother of 5 from Detroit, was transporting a black man from Selma to the airport when she was killed by the Ku Klux Klan. Although honored at the time as a martyr, her name has almost been lost to history. One woman who simply cannot be forgotten in this list of memorable Unitarians is Anne Dunham, an incredible woman with many notable accomplishments in her own right. This Unitarian, who unfortunately died in 1995, did not live to learn of perhaps her greatest accomplishment. Unitarian Anne Dunham was the mother to President Barack Obama. And last, we must honor a woman who has worked closely with many UUs over the years and was an ordained UU minister in her young adult life, Carolyn McDade has blessed us with the hymns we are singing today. Spirit of life, come sing a song with me, and we'll build a land. While UU congregations across the land know and love these songs, the International Partner Church Council adopted Spirit of Life as its council theme song. From scientists to suffragists, from poets and songwriters to civil rights activists, women from the Unitarian Universalist traditions have contributed to and even changed the course of our history. As we go out today during this Women's History Month, let us remember these names and honor these contributions. And let us acknowledge, too, that we, you and I, do make a difference. Our belief in the respect and dignity of all people, our expressions of love and caring, our small acts of kindness, and our involvement in social justice causes help to create a better world. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I will tell you too that that you will find lists of these women in the fellowship hall on the tables. So if you want to go home and do further research, you can do that. Now let us take a moment to reflect on these notable women who have given so much of themselves to help improve our world. And consider too what you have done in the span of your lifetime to bring joy and love and hope to others. Some of you have worked for social justice, or worked in education, or cared for the homeless, or given to charitable organizations, taught a child to read, or cared for the elderly. Most of our own actions will not make the history books or, in today's world, Wikipedia. But it's in the small actions, when we show our love and kindness, that we find true change and bring true hope to humankind. Blessed be.
We support UUCS through our pledges, time, and connections to one another. We support the Salem community through donations to the Marion Polk Food Share, and for the month of March, our partner church.
It's me again. In July of 2011, a group of 5 travelers from this UUCS congregation journeyed to Romania to visit our partner church and the village of Szymanfalva. Jean Scherbeck, Jean is here today somewhere, I think, maybe in the other room, L.J. Fredrickson, and 2 youths, Lydia Martin and Bree Vogel, and I arrived in the city of Cluj. We were met by our guides who showed us many sights around that city before we took off on a 5-day tour of Transylvania. Finally, we arrived in the small village of Szymanfalva. We were to stay in the homes of the local villagers, and we had been told that our accommodations would be fairly primitive. LJ and I envisioned sleeping cots and backyard outhouses. But when we arrived, I was taken to a lovely home with a plentiful garden, mother-in-law cottage, the internet. I didn't know I was going to get the internet. A lovely bed and an indoor bathroom complete with a warm shower. The people in Sheman-Falva showed a graciousness I had not expected. And for that brief week, we became part of their families. Today, when I see the people of Ukraine on television, I am reminded of the humanity of that part of the world, as Romania and Ukraine are very close neighbors. The Unitarian Church in Sheman-Falva was celebrating 200 years in their church building, and we were there to join in the celebration. One of the personal highlights of my entire life was joining their Sunday service, trying to sing their songs in Hungarian, and then delivering a message to the congregation from Reverend Rick. Now, of course, I do not know Hungarian, and many of the people there didn't know English. But as I began to read, I realized that many of the people, especially the women who had been present only in body, began to sit up straight. They looked at me and responded to my message as I read loudly, slowly, and clearly in English. When I finished, I stepped back and I said the one word I did know in Hungarian, "Köszönöm," thank you. And the entire church erupted in applause. I was overcome with joy. I realized that a connection had been made and that I had done my small bit to further peaceful relations in our world. Köszönöm.
Please send your checks to UUCS or visit the website to donate. Thank you for maintaining the community of UUCS and for helping the wider community of Salem. Next Sunday, Reverend Rick Davis will be back in the pulpit. It says, what is evil? Is there such a thing as evil? If there is, what leads it to arise, and how can we respond? News of the community. Next Sunday after service, there will be a class on proposed changes to the UUA 7 principles. This is an important issue for all Unitarian Universalists. Everyone who can attend is encouraged to do so.
Good morning. I'm Lorna Youngs, and I'm wearing my Chair of the Finance Committee hat, and I am here to nag you. We are only 2/3 of the way to our goal, and it's 4 weeks into our campaign. So I know you guys can do it. We are really trying to give our employees a living wage in these days of inflation and our basic needs, our own basic costs of just heating, and the utilities have gone up. And so I really, really encourage you, because we're going to call you and nag you if you don't do it. And I know you can. Thank you so much.
We take the light from our chalice, lighting the social justice lantern, as a symbolic reminder of the light and justice that we carry out into the world. As we extinguish the chalices, let us hear these words. For peace which passeth understanding, the peace of God, which the world can neither give nor take away, be among us and abide in our hearts.
Please rise in body and spirit as we sing our closing hymn, number 121, We'll Build a Land.
Like an ever-flowing stream, come
voice resound from spirits once faint and once weak. Will the oaks of righteousness stand? Her people, oh, will build a land. My people will see. Come build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may they create peace, where justice shall roll down like water, and peace like an ever-flowing stream.
Let us join with our community members, guests, family, and friends saying these words together. May faith in the spirit of life, hope for the community of earth, and love for the sacred in one another be ours now and in all the days to come. Blessed be.
It's Tuesday the 21st at 3 p.m. Do you need to send that to you? Yeah, well, get going. How are you doing?